Okay, everybody, we're starting to get to some more fun stuff. If you're not to this point in your model and you want to be, then just go ahead and go follow the links to the download. I uploaded it in this form right here so you can catch up. Now we're going to start finally getting ready to render it. The first thing we need to do is make sure we have V-Ray installed. I just went and did that. I showed you where the downloads are in some of the earliest videos. You can go and download the demo from Chaos Group. You'll have to sign up for an account there. Chaos Group downloads. You got to go to, well, whatever version of Max you've got, and then you can get V-Ray version 3.00.07. That's the newest one. Or you can go to these older ones. There won't be too much difference for you. Make sure and get the right version of Max. Once you get that file, just run it. It's an exe file, and run it and make sure to install Workstation, the Workstation version. Make sure Max is closed when you run it. And what the demo gives you is, I believe it is not limited on time, but what they do is they put a watermark on all your renderings, and they also randomly change the settings in there so that you have to go back and kind of set it back up. So that's a minor annoyance, but for this class I think it'll be perfect because I'll be able to show you all the settings, and if you purchase your own V-Ray it'll all work exactly the same. Or you can just follow along with the demo with me, and there's no time limit, and we can just use it to learn. That's kind of the purpose of the demo version. And then once we learn, maybe we'll spring for the full copy. I would definitely recommend it. V-Ray is an awesome program. So let's just set up a camera real quick. I will show you a standard camera, but I never use standard cameras anymore ever since they came out with the V-Ray ones. The difference between, okay, so if you go to Create Panel, we have Geometry, Shapes, Lights, and then Cameras. Cameras can drop down Standard or V-Ray. Oh, one other thing, make sure that in your render settings, Render Setup, go and make sure that Assign Renderer, oh, I got that wrong. Oh, I swear this was set up right. Okay, V-Ray Demo. Assign Renderer V-Ray Demo 3.00.07. It should come up with all your V-Ray settings. Okay, so make sure that's set up. Once V-Ray is loaded, you'll have these V-Ray options over here. So let's start with a standard camera just in case you want to know how to do that. You have two options here, target or free. Target means that when you draw your camera, see that little box out there? That's a target. So you point where your camera wants to go. If you hit C, that will change your view to the selected camera. So right there. These are your tools for navigating with the camera. Let's kind of zoom out. This one looks around like that. If you go into shaded mode, okay, so there's a simple camera. A free camera will do essentially the same thing, except it has no target. It just, if you're on the top view and you click it, you get a camera that's pointing down. So you'll have to rotate it. And there's no target to drag. You're just rotating the camera. It gives you one less object to have to mess with. Some people like these better, especially if you're animating. Okay, so same thing. V-Ray will work the same way as well, but it just has better settings in it. So V-Ray camera, and from here on out I'm going to be using V-Ray cameras. And we don't want the dome camera, we want the physical camera, V-Ray physical camera. And it is targeted by default, which I'm okay with. Now here's your settings down here. This is dolly camera. You don't need to worry about that. Roll camera. This actually like rotates your camera. You usually don't want to mess with that because it makes it hard to get your camera exactly right or get it back to where it was. Field of view. This is zooming your camera in and out, essentially. This dollies your camera, so that's moving your camera forward and back. This is the pan camera, so those are the main tools. Now, when you're doing architectural photography, you want these vertical lines, like this wall here and this wall here. Those usually want to be exactly vertical. They do that in architectural photography to make it look more correct. So they use special lenses to do that, called tilt shift lenses. In V-Ray, if you right click here on the name V-Ray camera and hit select camera, oh, just kidding, on the plus mark, select camera, and then go into the modify tab, you'll see all the different settings you can do here. If you hit this guess vertical tilt, that will straighten out all those lines for you. And when you're doing renderings, you'll generally want to do that. And that's how you put in a camera, very simple. And then you just start messing with all these settings here. Focal length, if you're familiar with regular cameras, then it'll basically have all the same settings as an actual camera. That's why it's called a physical camera. You usually want to, so if I select the camera and right click and go to the settings for move, I usually like to put if I'm taking a picture of a building as if I'm standing at eye level, then I make sure and set my camera at eye level in the Z axis. So we'll say 5'6", short person like myself. Did that work? Yeah, it did. Okay, so now we're at actual eye level. This might make it look a little more correct. And then I just use this pan camera here to look where you want to go. Make sure and guess vertical tilt, and you'll see that's changing this number. You can see if that's not set, then it's going to be funky. And then your zoom, your focal length right here is just like your zoom on your camera, so that's zooming in and out. That's a super wide angle right there. And if you move the camera in close and keep it at that wide angle, oh, here's another, the truck camera, this little hand here. So bring the camera back down. So you can see that gives you some really dynamic angles because it's such a wide angle lens. It's very skewed, the house now. And this is more photography tips than 3D, but if you zoom way out, truck your camera back up, and then get a kind of like a telephoto lens, you'll see that the angles are much less skewed. Everything looks flattened a little bit, much less dramatic and possibly dynamic. So these are kind of the things you want to consider as you're setting up a view. But as far as the camera goes, these tools down here, the pan camera, the truck camera, I mean, those are the main things you'll be using. Whoops. So those show up when you're inside of a camera view. You can see my view is set to V-Ray camera 01. So I think that I will take a shot from this side over here, and maybe let's select that camera again, get into all those settings, maybe set it, definitely not 50, maybe somewhere around 32. That's fine right there. And then let's okay, so instead of looking around, we're going to hold down on this and go to the orbit tool, and this will kind of orbit our camera around that building. Then we'll go back to the look around, and you know, something like that is very basic. I don't want to see much of this wall because I left it totally undone and boring, so maybe we'll just, and if you hold down shift, you'll look around, but only along the x-axis. If you let go of shift, you can look up and down. So I'm going to do something sort of like that, I think, something really basic. Remember your rule of thirds too. Here's another trick. If you hit shift F, that shows you what your actual rendering proportions are going to be, and we can change that. I usually like more panoramic proportions. So that's set here, your render width, your output size, your width, and your height. So I usually go with proportions that are more like maybe 1200 and 600. Then you can lock those proportions in. So the image aspect is 2.0. Now you can see that those are my actual proportions right there. Something like that will be just fine. Yeah, I think I like that. And we'll go more into the settings of the camera as we go along. There's quite a few of them here. But I just wanted to show you how to basically put one in. And you know, whatever view you want to come up with is a view that you can create. Just a matter of placing cameras. If you go to the top view, hold down Shift and copy this camera over here. Don't usually instance cameras. That's probably not a good idea. So copy it. With it selected, hit C as a hotkey. And there's that other view. Okay. So let's come over here a little bit. Maybe do that right there. Zoom out a bit. There's another view we could do. Let's make sure and guess our vertical tilt, like that. Very slight change there, but still necessary. Okay, so that's how you set up cameras. Pretty straightforward.